Hi everyone, this is Malati. I live in Plano, Texas, along with my husband Chandru. I'm a gardener. I guess I got into gardening about 15, 18 years ago. I'm an IT person turned food blogger. I have a blog called Healthy Indian. That's my logo at the bottom there. I also teach yoga. I volunteer. I travel the world, at least pre-COVID, amongst wearing other hats. Plano, Texas is zone A/zone B, depending on where you are. So, to composting. I attended a composting seminar several years ago, conducted by the city of Plano. And honestly, I was very intimidated by the math and the science that was involved. We had to go through several rooms of displayed compost. Then we had to take a little quiz on how much of carbon, how much of nitrogen, what constitutes carbon, what constitutes nitrogen. And I was just scared out of my wits. So I said, forget it, I'm not going to compost. And so life went on. What happened? We would generate garbage after garbage every week because I cook, I'm a food blogger. And so I'm generating a lot of vegetable waste. And I grow a lot of vegetables, so I had a lot of waste coming from my yard as well. And it all was landing up in the garbage. Then one day, came across a friend who was gifted with a compost bin by her husband. What a lovely birthday gift. So she started composting. And then about 6 months later, I started watching Rebecca compost. And then on a whim, I took the plunge and attended another City of Plano event. And that's where we got our compost bin. So after that, there has been no looking back. We've been composting now for over 5 years. And guess what? Our garbage went from 8 grocery bags a month filled with plastic and organic material to literally 1 grocery bag of non-recyclable trash a month. And this is for a family of 2. So you can do the math and see how advantageous this would be if you were to compost for a family of 4. So that being the background, moving on to the next slide. So why compost? So I guess all of you are here because either you're gardeners or you go outside into your yard and you see either how bad the soil is. If you live in Texas, especially North Texas, the soil is clayey. Literally nothing grows. Nothing grows that is not native to this part of the world. Yes, trees will grow. We have lovely pecan trees, oak trees, but try growing vegetables in this earth and nada. You'll have nothing here. So that is where a good compost comes into the picture. Compost will enhance your soil. It will encourage the airflow. It retains water better. It encourages bacteria to grow, which is essential for maintaining the pH levels. So, and nutrients. The nutrients that come from compost is what plants need to achieve larger harvests. And earthworms. I know I used to feel the U factor when I saw worms, but now I know. I encourage earthworms. When I see an earthworm struggling, which has come out of my garden bed, I very gently take it and throw it back into my garden bed. Because as a gardener, I know how important earthworms are to till the soil. It also prevents erosion when used as a mulch. And of course, saving on landfill space. Look at the garbage next time you throw something into your garbage. Look at it and think for yourself, could this have gone into my compost bin? And maybe that will encourage you to start composting. And it's easy, guys. If you read up, it's very scary. So I'm here to tell you that I like to keep my life simple. And it's one of the simplest things that you can do for yourself, for your garden, and for the planet. So welcome to composting. So history of compost. The history is probably even before humankind even came. What happened, right? Long before people even inhabited this planet, composting was something that just happened in nature, right? In every swamp, every forest, every meadow, wherever there was vegetation, composting was going on. Then sometime probably in the distant past, probably our ancestors noticed that crops were growing better near piles of rotting manure or vegetation. So then the discovery was passed on to the succeeding generations. And so now composting is just a natural process, something that our ancestors learned to use. And this is my mother, and I happened to video her. This was about 3 years ago. She was 84, going on 85 at that time. She's going to turn 88, I believe, this year. My sister is on this Zoom call. So I'm going to just turn on this video. This is something that she used to do every single day. Just watch what she does. Look at her squatting at this age. It's pretty amazing. So she just takes her vegetable waste for the day. She goes into her little backyard. Not that there's not much of space, but she just digs a little hole and then pushes the soil over it. And she lives in Bangalore. And then she tells me that this turns into rich compost in Bangalore, India's weather, in about 3 weeks. So that's all simple. And she'll reuse that plastic cover and so on. And her garden, she's got a lovely little garden. It's just amazing that she does this. And I guess she has been a role model for me, which is where my background has come in handy to do sustainable practices in my own life. So moving on. So we know why we're going to compost. Why do we need to do it at home? There's several reasons. And I'll give you a little story. So a few years back, California asked the city of Los Angeles to reduce its landfill. So they said, okay, what do we do? So they said, let's compost. Let's take all the waste from the residents, compost it, and sell it back to the residents. Win-win, right? Nope, that was not the case. Slowly, they started getting reports. Farmers started saying that they're losing crops. People started saying that they're losing their flowers. Then there was an investigation, and then they realized that there was this compost which the city of LA was selling back to its residents had a dandelion herbicide. It's called chlorophyllide, and it was killing crops and commercial flowers. Suddenly, these programs in several parts of Washington and Los Angeles and other parts of the country came to a grinding halt as the quote-unquote contaminated compost scandal started to spread. So, be careful. Go to a reliable source when you buy your compost. I know, I'll tell you upfront that I cannot make enough compost for my own garden. We are a family of 2. We eat a lot of fruits and veggies. Even so, I cannot produce. We're forced to go out and we are forced to buy compost. So be careful, buy organic compost only and be very careful. So why not just go and buy the cheapest compost available? Herbicides, pesticides, microplastics, heavy metals, pathogens, toxins. And guess what? The US government is perfectly okay with composters adding sewage and sludge. And you know where that's coming from, right? That's feces, either human feces or animal feces. So think about it. Oil and automotive waste also get into these composts. Several times, the acid-alkaline balance is not there. Why? Because compost needs to cook. Compost needs to get to a point where it is soil ready, plant ready. Sometimes commercial composters are in a hurry to get this to market. So they will take shortcuts. So these are some of the things that you have to watch out for. Instead, why not make some of your own compost? And that's where my talk comes in. So 3 elements for making the perfect compost. Number 1, you need a container, right? Otherwise you can dig into the ground like my mother did and put little scraps in there and close. But then you have to remember where you had dug and kind of space it out. But who knows, rodents might come, they might start digging in. You don't want a rodent problem. But you can have a stationary bin, and depending on where you live, if you have a lot of land available, you can create bins like this. You can just dump your garbage, your food waste into it, and just allow nature to take the heroine's role in this and turn your vegetable waste into compost. Or you could also have a commercial bin. This is a stationary bin, and you can start dumping your food waste into it. There is one caveat with stationary bins. You have to turn these wastes regularly. So you have to, every few days, you have to take a rake and you have to turn it. Kind of a royal pain. So we go on to the next option, rotating bins. We love convenience, don't we? I live in a suburban home right in the middle of Plano. I don't have much yard space, and I need something where I don't have to worry about rats getting into my food, getting into my compost bin. So these are wonderfully designed BPA-free compost bins that you can purchase. They are some of them, like you see this one on the left, low to the ground. This is a single bin. This has a handle. You can just rotate it. And this is a double bin. So you can start your compost on one side and allow the other side to cook once it's free. So these rotate by themselves. You don't have to use a rake to work the raw materials in. And this is my preferred way of doing it. So the next element to get a perfect compost, this is where the little bit of science comes in. So we need 3 things to make a compost work. One is carbon, the next is nitrogen, and the third is water. So you need to have a mix of these 3 things. And don't worry about this. You don't have to memorize what is brown, what is green, but here are some things that will tell you what are some of the brown objects. What are browns? Browns are anything that is dry or woody plant material. So in most cases, these materials were brown originally, or they turned naturally brown. And why do we need carbon? Why do we need these browns? These browns are carbohydrate-rich materials. And the main job of a brown in a compost is to work with the microbes to break down the contents of your compost pile. These browns will help by adding bulk, and they will allow airflow through the pile. So you need oxygen to get the composting process going. So remember, leaves, they're loose. So once you put leaves into a compost, just think about it. They create this beautiful oxygen flow inside the compost. Same thing with straws, same thing with hay. I've got some asterisks here. Twigs, chipped barks, definitely not for a suburban garden. Corn stalks, if you can break the corn stalks into small pieces, then it's okay. Otherwise, definitely not. So this is brown. And I'll answer some of your questions. Now, next is the nitrogen. Nitrogen is needed for, again, to bring that nice balance into your compost mix. So greens are what are rich in nitrogen. They're rich in nitrogen and they're also rich in protein. So these are wet and recently growing materials, and they come from plants that were green at some point. So glass clippings, they were green at some point. Coffee grounds, the plants were green at some point, right? Vegetables, fruits, they were all green. Eggshells, exception. Seaweed, also green. And again, if you are using composting in a suburban garden, I strongly suggest that you do not use animal manures. Keep that out. Everything else is kosher. I don't have access to seaweed, but if you have access to it, then do use it. It is very, very rich in nitrogen. So let's move on. And the third is water. I have not really specified water here, but water is needed to keep the mix. So if you find that your compost is very dry, then you would add a little water, especially in Plano where the summers are blazing hot. Depending on where you keep your compost bin, materials tend to dry. Or sometimes I cook a lot on Sundays, then I dump everything into the compost. And then for 3 or 4 days, I'm not cooking, and probably I don't have enough vegetable matter to go into the compost. It might get dry because I might be putting leaves. I may not be putting enough green matter. So I'm putting a lot of browns. I'm not putting enough greens. That is when water will help to mix everything. The third item is location. Location of your compost bin is important. I like my compost bin to be unobtrusive. So if I have guests in my backyard, I don't want my compost bin to be really staring at my face. That said, you need to have your compost bin in the sunniest location that you can find, given your limitations. So I have put my bin where I have my pool equipment. It receives about 6 to 7 hours of sunlight. I wish it could receive 10 hours of sunlight. It would be great, but then I don't have enough sunlight. So I'm just working with what I have. So the pictures here were taken yesterday. This is my compost. I have ground coffee here. I have some celery stalks. I made a green smoothie. These are jackfruit seed covers. I made a sambar, lentil soup with jackfruit seeds. So I have that. And then to that, I made something with onions. So those are my homegrown onion peels. Avocado. So we had a guacamole last night. So that's avocado. This is my curry leaf stock. And these are my green chilies, homegrown green chilies. I cut off the tops. I also had eggshells. Last night, my dog Chutney ate an egg. I guess I took this picture before that. The next chore you need to do, and you can't get away from this, is to rotate your compost bin. So here's what I do. I have a little box like this. You can go really fancy. If you go onto the internet, you will see a lot of fancy composting kitchen bins that you can buy. I have used a plastic box. Probably someone gave me something for a takeout or something. I have this box. I use this box from morning to evening. I put stuff that I use in my kitchen. I dump it into this. Every night I will go and dump this into the compost, and then I rotate the compost bin. Why do I need to rotate it? Because I need to get air into it, and I need to make sure that the old mix is getting thoroughly mixed with the new material. It's very essential to do that. The third is test. So every time I open the compost bin to throw in my vegetable waste, I also look inside to see if the material is too dry or too wet. If it is too wet, I have some brown paper that I have shredded. We get now with COVID times, we are getting a lot of packaging material. So what do? We run that packaging material through our shredder, and I keep a whole bunch of brown paper shreds in my bag. So I will go and throw some brown paper into it. If it is too dry, most of the times now I notice that it is extremely dry because of our hot weather. I just take a bowl of water and I just slosh it into my compost, turn it, and leave it alone. Now, how long does it take for these things to cook? We'll come back to that. So, what to add and what not to add? You can literally add anything that you're using in your kitchen. The exceptions are dairy, meat, fish, bones, fatty food, oil, and grease. So these are things that cannot go into your regular compost. Those of you that want to compost your meat and your bones, there is a technique called bokashi composting. So you can contact me and I can give you some information about bokashi composting. You can compost that inside your home. I had thought wine corks were very compostable. So for a whole 6 months, I dropped my wine corks into my compost bin. And once my compost was cooked, when I took it out, number one, I was horrified to see how many wine bottles we had gone through, number one. And number two, none of those corks had composted. All fine French wines, Italian wines, nothing had composted. So I suggest that you don't use the corks. Avocado seeds, again, logic. Very difficult for the worms to eat these seeds. Anything that has disease, please don't put them in. Synthetic tea bags. A lot of our tea bags are made from synthetic material, so be very careful. Don't put the staple that is attached to your tea bag. Please remove it before you add it into your compost. Weeds, obviously, because why? You don't want weeds in your compost because when the compost is cooked, weeds are really tough. They will start sprouting in your compost. After you put the compost into your beds, they will start sprouting. So no, a big no. Of course, no kitty litter there. Remember to remove the produce sticker. I had made the mistake of not removing the stickers. I did not realize that they were coated with some synthetic stuff. I thought it was just paper. I think it is glue. So they all did not compost. Very annoying. Any food cooked with oil, please do not compost. However, that said, a friend of mine made a lot of idlis. Idlis are puffed rice cakes, for those of you that don't know. And she did not like the way they turned out. So she asked me if I could compost it for her. And I actually threw it in my compost because there was no oil in it. It was just rice and lentils. And my worms loved it. After 3 weeks, I did not even see any idlis in my compost, so they like to eat it. Everything else that you see on the left side, fruit and vegetable peels, do not use citrus peels. If you are doing a home compost, the worms do not like citrus peels. So no lime, no lemon, no orange peels. Anything rotten, moldy, the worms love it. Avocado peel, the peel is very tough, so please cut it into small pieces. The smaller you cut your things, the easier it is for your worms to eat them. Remember, they have very tiny mouths. They will go through it. Even if you put a big melon rind, they will eat it, but it will take a long time for them to eat it. So if you want to help your compost to grow fast, then cut everything. Grass clippings, brown unbleached coffee filters only. So moving on. So when is your compost ready? And I have a few videos here that I'm going to play. I took this a couple of days back and I'll show you. So so I pulled out a little bit of compost. So I have 2 bins. So I have pulled out compost from each of these bins. So you will see the first one I'm going to start from the left, and you will see a lot of worm activity in this. And you see how wet it is? This means that this compost is still in the process of happening, right? The cooking process is going on. And those of you that have a EU factor for worms, please be warned. Turn away from your screens for the next 3 minutes, because I love my worms now. If I had seen these 10 years ago, I would have totally freaked out. But now I handle them, and sorry, I even talk to them sometimes. So here goes. See these worms? They are crawling all over and they are disseminating my vegetable waste. See that? Lot of worms. And this is what the worms look like. They look like, I don't know, someone said they look like weevils. I don't know what they are called. I think they're called wrigglers. So at different times of the year, different worms come to visit. In the wintertime, these guys are gone. These little critters are gone. There are flying insects that come out. They do no harm. They have never bitten me. Like I said, I've been composting for 5 solid years. I have not paused composting even for a single day. Things fly out. They've never harmed me. My dog is outside all the time. None of us have been bitten. These guys come only in the summertime. So they eat, and that is summer is when your compost is working really hard for you. So the faster you throw in compost in the summer, the more the results. So now look at this compost. This is from my second bin. You'll see very few insects in this. See that? There's just one bug, 1 or 2 bugs crawling around, or maybe 3, but very, very few of them. So you know that this compost is almost cooked. And now this is a picture on the extreme right, 0 worms. You see not a single worm. The compost is powdery. It doesn't look like the compost that you purchase from the store. Why? Because commercial compost is put through a screening process. So what they do is they have huge mesh screens and they pound the compost because it needs to look quote unquote beautiful, right? I have done no such thing. They put it through a screen and they sieve it. When they sieve it, then they sell it as 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, or 1/4 millimeter, 1/2 millimeter. So the thicker it is, people use it as mulch. The thinner it is, then you can dig it in. This is home. This is the real deal, guys, right? So this is how my compost looks. I harvested this compost about a week back, and now I have, for my fall gardening, I'm getting ready for fall gardening. So I have started to work this compost into my veggie plants. And really, you need very little of your home compost. Unlike the commercial compost, you need very little of this to make healthy plants, tons of produce. So let's move on. So this is what, compost looks like. Okay, sorry. All right, when is compost ready? So when it smells like earth. Compost should not stink. Number 1 rule. If you have the carbon nitrogen combo, again, what is this carbon combo? It should not stink. It should not be too dry. It should not be too wet. If it is too dry, add water. If it is too dry, add vegetable waste. If it is too wet, add brown paper. If it is too wet, add grass clippings or cardboard or dry leaves. And when you look at it, you should not see any worms consuming the waste, as I showed you in the picture that was on the extreme right. It should be crumbly, and you should not see any food items in your compost. I will give you one small exception though. Eggshells. You will still see eggshells in your compost. No matter how small you crush them, unless you put them into a coffee blender before composting it, you will see eggshells, and that's perfectly okay. What I do is I use the eggs, I just let it out to dry for half an hour till it becomes a little crummy. I just crush it with my hands, and I will add it to my compost. So when I harvest this compost, I will see eggshells, but I will not see my watermelon, I will not see my curry patta, I won't see any of those things. It should look like dark soil. This is how our compost looks like. Very different from commercial compost, but much better, much healthier in my opinion. Harvesting compost. How do you harvest your compost? When you see no worm activity, everything looks crumbly, everything looks dry, it smells beautifully earthy, you can just tilt your compost or shovel it out of your bin and then use it as is, as mulch. Otherwise, you can take portions of this, work it into your soil, add some commercial compost if you need to, if you have to supplement, because I don't think any of us can produce enough compost to satisfy our needs. And just before planting, work it into your garden, and voila, you will get really beautiful produce. I guarantee it. Combined with rainwater that you have harvested, combined with the compost that you use, your garden will look lusher than ever before. So why? We need sunshine, which we have abundance of. We need the water. Better to use your own rainwater, nature provided, and use your own compost. Again, nature provided. Doesn't take too long. So if you are in the DFW area, local source for organic compost is Texas Pure. They are a few miles from where I live. They have commercial operation. They gather compost waste from several cities around here. I believe Allen, Frisco are also participating cities, and they produce organic compost, and I love their compost. So if you are in the DFW area, also carbon footprint, these bags are heavy, so the less miles they travel, the better it is for the planet. Texas Pure also does bulk delivery. So if you call them, they will come in their truck, and they will, I think it's by cubic yard. It's much cheaper if you buy it in bulk. If you don't buy it, if you don't want bulk, they also supply it in bags. Sources and ideas for compost bins, Amazon, of course. Pinterest will give you some ideas on how to blend a compost bin into your landscape. There are several landscaping ideas. There are several landscapers who will paint your compost bin, just like rain barrels. You can also paint your compost bins to make them look pretty. Wayfair.com is another up and coming site. I have seen some very reasonably priced compost bins on their website also. So what do I have before I end this? I have 2 compost bins. One is a single compost bin, and both are by this company called Yimly, YIMBLY. There are many of them there. I don't know why I got Yimly. The first one was a Yimly, and so the second one was also a Yimly. The first one was a single compartment. I love it. It's got holes to allow rainwater to come in, but it also allows excess water to drain, and I love it. But what happens if you have only a single bin compost? What happens? You cannot stop adding things. So when does it cook? Never. So what I did was I ended up getting a second compost bin. Now that second compost bin has 2 compartments, just like I showed you in one of the pictures before. So I can start adding raw material to one side of the compost. Once it's full, I close that and I start adding raw material to the other compost. So it starts cooking. But a couple of reasons why I don't like it all that much, because it is hard to shovel things out, because when I tilt that compost, everything falls off, even from the side. So pick and choose, look at reviews online to see what works for you. Contact me and I'll give you some more ideas. So I'm going to open this up for Q&A. Before that, I'm going to just show you a video of my garden. I'm going to do a very quick PowerPoint slide of, where is it? Okay. All right. So I'm being told that I won't have time to show a lot of questions. Okay. So let's go to the chat window, and I'll start with the chat, and then you can unmute yourself and let's ask. Okay. All right. So where do we start? Wonderful session. Okay. Can't see you. Does this? I know my sister Meera says my mom does this even today. Yeah. How funny, how nice. Do you have to be careful with some of the grass that's combined with the weeds? Yes, like I said, don't add weeds to your compost. I personally don't add weeds to my compost because grass clippings also I try to avoid because of hidden seeds in the grass clippings. You can use grass clippings if you have an outside large compost, then it really doesn't matter. It will cook in the open sun. If you are in a farm, you own a farm, you can do that. Or if you are in one of these 2 or 3 1-acre plots, Shobha Michaels, you can do that. Not in our small yards. Yes, weed is a lot of carbon. So again, be careful of carbon, nitrogen. Like I said, the smell will tell you. If it is giving you a putrid smell, then you have to add a little more brown to it. Shredded brown cardboard is something that I add, or brown paper. Does the compost bin smell bad? No. A good compost will never smell. It has an earthy smell. Now that can be nasty for some people, but for me, it is like black gold, guys. I call this, it is called black gold, and there's a reason why people call it that. This is what nature thrives on, and a good compost should not smell. What's the alternative for carbon items when dry leaves are not available? I see mixed opinions using shredded black paper. I honestly have never used black paper, but like I said, right now, COVID times, I'm getting a lot of brown paper shopping bags, right? Paper shopping bags, takeaway bags of groceries or food items, food takeaway. A lot of restaurants are now giving you brown paper bags. Whole Foods always gives you brown paper bags. I run it through my shredder and I keep those brown things available. I honestly would not use. Yes, Amazon gives you corrugated boxes. Yep, remove the plastic, remove the tape, remove anything that looks synthetic and use it. It is better than putting it into recycle, because this is going to generate really rich soil for you. Sneha says no dairy. Some YouTube suggests using yogurt to promote microbes. Sneha, the worms will come, trust me. And I have never put dairy in. Like I said, Bokashi is the only place where you would compost your dairy, your meat, and your oils. And you don't, and dairy will rot. You know, milk, if milk goes bad, you know how it smells? It stinks. So I do not use it. The internet has a plethora of opinions. So what I have talked about today is my experience from the last 5 years. Does that mean I know everything? Of course not. So again, try it. If you don't see worms, then you know, lesson learned, don't use yogurt. And in any case, why am I wasting my organic yogurt on my microbes? They have enough to eat, guys. I'm not going to waste my yogurt on them. So hopefully, Sneha, that answered your question. Shobha, I was under the impression that onions and citrus items cannot be added. Yes, do not add citrus items to your home compost, rotator compost. Onions, garlic skins, chilies, everything can be added. I've had great success with all of these things. Sonal says, any suggestions on speeding local Texan tree leaves compost process? I noticed there are probably xerophyte can take a long time to compost. It's a bit of a problem. Some of our magnolia leaves and stuff like that. I have a holly tree and I would never put them in my compost bin. Number one, the leaves are prickly. They poke my fingers. And second is they are really tough. So be careful on these leaves. I prefer brown paper. Yeah, let the city take your leaves. They have Texas Pure will take it and they will cook it for you. So do that. Santoshi says, what about avocado seeds? Any seeds like melon seeds, any small seeds that the worms can eat, do add it. Avocado seeds are huge. So that's the reason why I said don't add those seeds. But any other seeds, I'm thinking ridge gourd seeds.
One challenge with adding a whole bunch of seeds is when you start using the compost, you use it on a, say, bed that has beans, and suddenly you see all kind of things growing there. That's because those seeds are coming back to life. The first time we did that, like, is this a weed? Is this something? They ended up turning different kind of vegetables. So I mean, once it grows, you can transplant those little guys and actually use them. So yeah, use whatever seeds you want.
Yeah, if you use seeds, there are chances that you may get a volunteer plant to come up. We've had a lot of melons that have come up. We have a lot of these bitter gourds that have come up on their own, flowers that have come up on their own. And for me as a gardener, I welcome this diversity. But if you don't like it, then probably not a good idea to add seeds. Or if you see these seeds sprouting, just pull out the little plants. Sneha says, can you chop your peels, leaves, twigs to smaller bits? Yes, Sneha, if you have the time and patience. Twigs, I don't put twigs because I don't have the patience to break them. I put them in my city waste. Let Texas Pure deal with it. Peels, anything that's really thick, I will chop them. If I have watermelon, I will run it through my Vitamix once just to, chop it up to small pieces, or I'll cut them real small. Avocado peels especially, they need chopping. Nandini, can we use citrus peels and boiled eggshells? Eggshells, definitely, yes. They are very nutritious for your worms. Citrus peels, I would stay away from them. Those worms look like maggots, Bhaskar. Are they beneficial? Absolutely. These are the worms that I speak to every single day. They are the worms that are turning your food waste into this black gold. So yes, they are our friends. They are not maggots. Do you add starter compost or do you buy worms? I do neither. Nature does her job. The first day I bought my compost bin, it was looking sad and empty, and I put some things into it and I'm thinking, okay, how are the worms going to know that I have a compost bin? How do they know to come into my house? And guess what? In 3 days, I went there and the whole thing was infested with worms. They know, they'll come. Now I don't buy worms either. They'll come on their own. No starter compost either.
I would compare this to sourdough, which is a big trend these days. Sourdough, again, you can put things out there and collect sourdough from air, but you can buy the starter. So similar thing with the starter too.
So I would say you can throw in a handful of dirt into your compost if you want. Not necessary. Javeria, thank you for your compliment. Meera says in our apartment for composting, sawdust is added and segregated veggie waste. Does that sound right? Absolutely. Sawdust was a list on my list, Meera. So you guys are generating a lot of food waste. My sister lives in Bangalore and she is doing amazing work in her apartment complex. So she has done wonderful things with their garden. And so they do a lot of composting. Nandini, how much compost to use and how to store them? I store mine in anything that I harvest. I just store it in a big pot. And whenever I need it, I just shovel some of it into the earth. How much compost to use? Again, how bad is your soil? How much compost had you added before? Where you live? A lot of factors. If you live in Dallas, Texas, and I think you do, our soil is really clayey. So I would use 50% compost, 50% organic potting soil mix, dig it in, mix everything with the local soil. When you touch your soil, it shouldn't be clumpy, it shouldn't be clayey. It should just fall through your fingers. So that's how you know, because there needs to be air inside our earth. Krishna says, how do you agriculture? What is that? Is a good option. I'm sorry, Krishna, I have no idea what this kind of compost is. I may have to research this. Thank you, Shobha, for coming. Onion peels can be used. Yes, please use onion peels. Do we need to sieve the compost? No, I don't. Like I said, commercial guys do it. I don't. Thank you, Shobha. Thanks, Meera. Parameshwaran says, how about composting in winter? Should we continue? Yes, I continue year-round, guys. I don't stop. In the last 5 years, I can't remember a single day when I threw my veggie waste into the trash. I cannot. I compost through the winter, and there'll be different kind of worms that will come in the winter time. The activity is not much though, so you have to be patient. The compost won't cook so fast in the winter time, but that's okay. We have all the time in the world. So thanks, Neelima. How to compost in winter? Yeah, so like I said, 365 days of the year, I am composting. Okay, Krishna, this is a composting method that uses large pieces of rotting wood as a centerpiece of long-term humus building. So this is nature's way of doing, right? So in my little suburban yard, I don't have the space to do this. So, but if you have a large space, then this is exactly how nature does it. A tree falls down in a thunderstorm, and then she starts rotting, and then everything starts growing around her, and that's where the humus is coming, right? The humus is coming from the rotting wood. So yeah, if you have the space, please do it, and please invite me to come and enjoy it. Thank you, Bhaskar. Ritu, thank you for joining from Austin. Thanks for your time. Sona, thank you so much. Does Texas Pure collect leaves? Plano will collect them, Sneha. We have 10 to 12 bags every couple of months. Please give it to them. They will, surrounding cities also, please. Your city will collect your leaves. They'll take it to Texas Pure and they'll sell it back to us. But Texas Pure will make sure that it is organic. So they will separate it out. They will do whatever. And when it cooks in their high temperatures, all the chemicals are gone, I suppose. Can we add non-organic veggie scraps in the... Yeah, you can add non-organic. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we try to do organic, but some Indian vegetables that we buy from the Indian stores, they're not organic, but the worms will eat it, guys. So I hope I've encouraged a few of you to start composting. It is really not difficult. Trust me. Once you start, it's a mind barrier. That's all. How do we contact you? You came through the Zoom meet, and my email must be there. If it is not, go to my website healthyindian.com, and there's a contact page. You can contact me there. Otherwise, I will put my email in the chat here. The chat seems to have just disappeared. Okay, let me put that here. I'll send it out here. My address is malathyc@yahoo.com. Please contact either Chandru or myself, and I will give Chandru's address. And again, we want to save this planet. We want to save this earth in every small way that we can. So thank you so much for participating. And I hope we've shared some of our love for the earth and for nature with you guys. So thank you again. Again, I'm available. Chandru is available for any help that you need, guys. We can do another Zoom call if you're installing a rain barrel, if you're trying to install a compost. Please call us, please email us, and we'll get onto the phone call or a Zoom call with you guys, and we will lead you through this process. Anytime we are available.
Thank you again. This is Chandru here. I know a couple of you asked if we're going to make the presentation available. What we'll do is we'll put it on Google Drive or something and send you a link. Basically, we'll send it to everybody who registered today, and you're free to use it or not. But like Marti said, we are here for any questions you have. Yeah. Thank you again on a weekend spending time with us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Malati. Thanks, Chandru.
Hey, thank you, Malati. Thanks, Chandru.
Bye.
Bye.